Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Renee Montgomery, co-owner and VP of the Atlanta Dream, Monique Rodriguez, founder and CEO of Mielle Organics, and Julie Wilson, beauty editor-at-large at Cosmopolitan Magazine for Color of Conversation.
Oh yeah, the mic's on our butt. Hi, how's everyone doing? Good. Wasn't that amazing? So powerful, so amazing. I was sitting up there with Renee watching it, so that was a treat as well. But thank you for everyone being here. I want to give a quick shout out to the Film Festival, Atlanta Dream, Mielle, anyone who, especially my brother, Miles Worthington, wherever he is, I think he's in the back, for asking me to moderate this, because it really, truly is like a dream discussion. I've talked to Monique many times before, because I'm in beauty. But learning Renee's story, I was a Division I track and field athlete, so I have that, like, women's athletics in me. My father's a former NFL player, so I know, I love watching you and your dad out on the court doing all of that. And then now I've dedicated my whole professional career to creating more space, celebration for Black and brown folk in the beauty industry. So talking to you two is truly a dream. So we're gonna have a good old time and talk to these women about their life, their career, and like what we just saw on the screen, and how also Mielle is getting into the action, pun intended. So Renee, we're gonna start off by talking a little bit about why this was so important, this story was so important for you to tell. Because you could have kept this. We could have just, we could have gone on Wikipedia, we could have like learned some of this here and there, but to bring it to life in a film is so important. But like, what pushed you to do it?
Yeah, no, first of all, shouts to the squad up here with me. I just think that, first, I didn't really even think about telling my story. I think that's the good thing about having a team around you, like people around you that see you in a certain light. Because for me, I opted out of the WNBA in a tweet, just to give you a perspective of how I didn't see things being perceived. I didn't think that people would care. So I'm like, okay, let me just send my tweet out. I'm opting out, and I'm gonna go about my business. And then y'all saw my wife, Serena, who shouts to my wife, Serena.
She's here.
This is crazy. Like,
the beautiful dope wife is here.
Yeah, she's in the building, but she started just recording me all the time around the house. As a third of the footage in the film, if you see the little white line around it, that's pretty much Serena's footage that she was telling me that this is important, like what you're doing is big. And I'm like, girl, calm down. Like, we just about to do some things here in the A. We're gonna try to turn up and see like how we can make our situation better. Snook and Diddy, as you guys saw, they've been following my career my whole life. Like, they've been taking notes, keeping receipts, as you can see, holding people accountable. So whenever the opportunity came up with Spring Hill, I was almost a little bit apprehensive. First of all, letting people into your life is uncomfortable. I was telling you, I was like, oh, this is so cringe right now, because just seeing myself, seeing my story, but it felt like it was something bigger happening. And then when it all started to come together, like, you know, in the hindsight, it's like, of course I should have done that, because this is a story that I feel like all of us can relate to. I mean, I'm sure that there's not any, especially a Black woman in the building, I'm sure there's not anyone that hasn't experienced something where you have somebody at work where you probably feel like you're overqualified, they're underqualified, they got the job, and it feels like you keep getting looked over. And so I just felt like this is a story of us all. So that was kind of the point of it.
Absolutely, and it was beautifully told, really it was. Now, Monique, let's talk. We've talked in the past about your journey, but I think it is so beautiful that you have a similar personal journey with like creating Mielle, but also I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about how this partnership came together, because this is a P&G production, right? Procter & Gamble, if you don't know, which bought Mielle a few years ago, 2 years, 1 year ago, wow. But to bring that to life, I mean, also shout out to Mielle. Do you guys use Mielle products? Because
Okay.
so good. So I love the fact when it was announced that the company would also be sponsoring like the WNBA, that was huge. But for them to now also be taking this leap into storytelling, can you talk a little bit about the partnership there with Mielle?
Yeah, of course. And that's why, number one, partnerships like what we've been able to do with P&G is so important, especially for the Black community, because we're able to scale, we're able to amplify our voices, we're able to amplify our story, because the Black community needs to see stories like this. Like the notion of kids can't be what they don't see. How can they see it if we're not telling our stories? So to your point earlier, you didn't want to tell your story because it's like, you know, this is my story and I don't want to let people in my business, but it's really not your story, it's his story, right? And when we don't tell our story, we're
Take
really—
us to church.
Yeah.
It's Tuesday, but
It's Tuesday,
okay, we'll
but
go to church.
We're gonna pretend like it's Sunday. But ultimately, like when you don't tell your story, I feel that you're not being obedient to God's calling and purpose on your life, because your story, there are so many people that are assigned and attached to your destiny that you're gonna inspire, you're gonna ignite that fire inside of them that you don't even know and you don't even realize it. And even with Mielle, people come up to me all the time and they talk about how Mielle has changed their lives and how Mielle has inspired them. And I'm like, I just love hair products. Like I just started this because it was something that I love doing. But you never know how you are going to touch and impact so many people. And that's why amplifying storytelling is so important. And to be able to partner with P&G again, so little Black girls can see what's possible, right? So little Black girls can see like this is a normal trajectory of business and this is how you scale and amplify for the community and create generational wealth. This is how we do things like that. To have a great partner like them has allowed us to help Renee amplify her story. So it's not just about me, it's not just about you, but it's how do we create global impact. And this is a story that needs to be heard and seen globally. I think both of us have stories that need to be out there because that's how we're going to inspire and impact the next generation. So that's the reason why this partnership came together.
Absolutely. And
Hey, real quick,
Yeah.
give it up for
yeah.
Shouts to Mielle too, because I know we're talking about the documentary, but Mielle just came on as a team level sponsor for the Atlanta Dream, so I gotta shout that out because it's a real partnership happening.
Got some announcements. I love that.
I mean,
That's
yeah, it's a
amazing.
real partnership. I mean, they didn't even just stop with the documentary. Like the Atlanta Dream is now a team that has a partnership with Mielle, and I think that matters. Like they didn't just stop there. It's like we are real partners in this at this point. So I appreciate them.
Of course. I mean, how many Black women you know that are co-owners of a team in the WNBA?
Huge.
Like, let's just clap it up for that. So, I mean, it's like a no-brainer.
Now, did you play sports? Did you play basketball? Why was it so important to get involved in actual women's sports and basketball at that, WNBA?
Of course. I mean, I thought I was too short to play basketball. So, but I just found out that maybe I could have played basketball. I just found that out like 2 minutes ago. But but actually, I ran track. So I ran track and I was a cheerleader. And cheerleading is a sport. Okay.
It is.
Yes, it's a sport. Right. So that was my my choice of sports back then. And I feel that like, you know, being a woman in sports, like we deserve a platform too. Like just because we're in sports don't mean that we want to be on the court or we want to, you know, be seen on TV looking crazy, right? We still want to look presentable. We still want to represent because representation matters. And just because you're on the court, like it doesn't mean that your edges can't be laid, right? It doesn't mean that your scalp can't be oiled. So we want to be that brand.
In fact, you want them to be extra laid and extra oiled so that you look good.
So you look good.
While you're breaking ankles.
They say
like,
if you look good and you feel good, then you play good. So it's all connected.
I'm sure when your edges were extra laid, you were eating them up even
I needed
even
Mielle
more.
back. I'm going to tell you right now, you should have started about 25, 50 years ago because we needed you. If you saw the video, we needed you.
Y'all look good. Y'all look good while you were busting some butt. So that's nice. I'm looking at my notes here, and I love the fact that like you walk it like you talk it. You're not just doing this because it's a good business move, that sort of thing. You've been partnering with WNBA players for a while, and like players just in general that needed that extra support and encouragement. I'm seeing here like Juju Watkins and like Aja Wilson and Angel Reese. Like, it's amazing that you're dedicated to this beyond, I guess, the whole financial gain of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, You know, we're all about serving an untapped market. And for many, many years, no one was paying attention to the WNBA. No one was paying attention to these women athletes. No one was giving them endorsement deals and giving them platforms. But you see that these women are influencers in their own right. And it was, for us, we're all about empowering and elevating and uplifting voices in our communities. And when you look at Asia Wilson, when you look at an Angel Reeves, Juju Watkins, like these women are like breaking barriers. They are literally like changing the landscape of the WNBA. The WNBA has now received an endorsement from Amazon. And I will say that I feel like that came from Mielle, because Mielle, we're the ones that set the trends.
Talk about it.
So now
Talk about
Amazon
it.
wants to come on board.
First of all, talk it, right? Tell them.
We were the first.
Receipts.
Right?
We have receipts, right? I like that. I like that.
Receipts.
Wait, Renee, let's talk about the receipts of it all too with owning a team, right? Watching that and watching, what was the gentleman's name, the old white man boomer?
Oh, Larry G, that's my
Okay,
guy.
Larry G. Okay, but he was spitting facts that he was like, this is an old white man boomer club. And so to get up in there, I think it's just like a really interesting trajectory for, obviously you beat a player, but you to be a Black woman, and then also someone who is politically speaking out. We've seen what happened with the Colin Kaepernicks of the world and that sort of thing. So how did you kind of get past that fear of being able to be authentically you, and then also pull up to the table and say, I want to be a part of this ownership group and be taken seriously?
Yeah, shouts to Larry G, because there's not a lot of white boomers like him that's going to really talk it. He lives the life, but he's also talking like we need to do better. I think Sandrine is the director of this documentary, and I think they did a great job of showing like my upbringing, to where like my whole upbringing, I did have these elements in my life where it was HBCU life. We did grow up on campus, so I felt like I went to a HBCU even when I left to go to college at UConn. I understood. Yeah, shouts to the HBCUs out there. Shouts to the squad. I know we got Deltas in the building, but also shouts to the AKAs too. You see, I knew that was going to happen because I grew up in this.
You about to start a war.
Okay, my sister and my family's an AKA, but I think that our culture, like, I'm proud of it. So I came out very proud, even though I was submerged in a white culture. I came out very proud of our Black excellence. And so when it came to the point of making decisions about what I should do, what I shouldn't do, I know our history. So I know that these decisions aren't easy ever. And there's always going to be somebody that needs to make it. And so when I call my snook, she's lived through a lot. And she was in Detroit during the Detroit riots. And she was like, you know what, like, I'm sad that you're going through this, was her first comment. She's like, man, I thought that when we was making sacrifices, it was going to be for you, and that you wouldn't have to. And so to me, it was like, well, I guess, like, I'm about to do it then. You know, it was kind of like that when she was just saying, you're right where you need to be. That really stuck with me. Like, that was my own mother. Like, I'm thinking, like, what should I do? Like, I'm thinking she gonna tell me like, oh, play it safe, you know, like don't your career.
Right, how do you combat that? Like to say like, maybe I shouldn't say much because I might not be able to get back into the league, or I might not be able to move the way I want to move in the business world.
Exactly.
If I'm saying it with my whole chest.
Exactly. It was like to make the decision, even when I opted out, you know, like I could have opted out and been like, hey, I'm just gonna sit this season out for personal reasons, which other athletes did, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I felt like there was going to be something about like, no, I'm standing on something right now. So I want you to know I'm not opting out just to opt out. Like, I'm opting out because I want you to know, like, we need to do something. And so I don't know what that something's about to be, but if y'all trying to do something, I'm trying to do something, let's do something. And let's do something together. That's literally how it came together. I said in the film, I didn't have a plan. I really didn't, you know, but my wife, my parents, everybody was kind of like, if you want to do this, we got you. And it just kind of kept developing like that. I kept meeting another person, I got you. That's why I talk about Atlanta a lot. I got 100,000 aunties in Atlanta right now, and I'm not even from there. It was just like all of them, just everybody around me just was like, you don't have a job. I know my company needs somebody to speak on that. You know, it just started to be, oh, you don't have
a real village.
A real, like in real time, the village wrapped around me. LeBron James, the biggest of the biggest athletes talking about some, hey, you good? And it's just like when you see that happening, if I did have any question before, I had none after because I was good. I was throwing, you know what I'm saying, we was going to party. I told you guys, like, on Juneteenth, that's a celebration. And I felt like there wasn't a lot celebrated at that moment. And so it just was a full circle moment where I was a little bit nervous, especially since I had a family now. But once you make a decision, I'm kind of the type that I'm like, well, we got to make it work.
Yeah. What about you, Monique? Because I know the beauty industry is very white as well, as we know. So you being able to be in that industry and be such a boss, created such an empire and making decisions around your brand, how has that been for you to navigate as a Black woman?
Yeah, I feel that like when you enter into any space, you have to be your true authentic self, because I feel like it's a lot harder to be superficial, and that's the audience that you will attract. If you are, superficial and you have to maintain and keep up with this image, that's the audience that's going to attract to you, and that audience is not sustainable, right? When you are your true authentic self, you're going to attract the authenticity. So when things are up, when things are down, your audience is going to ride or die with you. And I've seen that with our mavens and our mavericks, that they're with us for the long haul, right? And when I created this brand, that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create this community that had sustainability, because my community is what's going to dictate and help me stand out, in what's so-called a saturated market or what's called a white industry. When you think of the multicultural space, our space is very, very small, right? But I was able to enter into this space and literally like disrupt the industry, because I came into this market being very authentic, being very true to myself, and with the mentality of like serving. And everything that you do, we're all here as vessels on this earth. We're all here to serve a purpose and to serve other human beings. And when you take your ego out of it, when you take your pride out of it, and when you really go into things with a humble spirit and a servant spirit, that's when the abundance starts to flow. And I feel like, obviously keeping God first at the center of everything that I do, I think everything falls into place. And to your point, when you start meeting people and they're like, hey, I can help you with this, or I can help you with that, or, let me connect you with such and such, that is alignment. And that's how you know that you're truly walking in your purpose. And I'm not saying that you're not going to be overwhelmed, you're not going to be stressed, but what I can tell you is you will feel those feelings, but you won't stay there. And you won't stay there, and that's how you know that you are in the perfect place, at the right time, in the right alignment that God has set for you. And as long as you stay focused on your mission and who God has called you to be, there is nothing that no one else can tell me that's going to change my mind, change my decisions, because I know where my source, and I know who gave me the wisdom to make those decisions.
Monique, there was about 12 quote cards that you just created that I would share on my social media. So we're gonna have to put them, we'll run it back. I'll make the cards and we'll share. But no, that's so true. And I want to talk to Renee a little bit about that too, as far as creating community, figuring out the alignment now with the Atlanta Dream, and figuring out, it was great to see you kind of in these boardrooms and these conversations around what the storytelling is going to be here. How do we build this into an international franchise, right? I chuckled a little when I saw the white woman. Sorry, I don't know. I didn't remember all these
Probably
women's
Morgan.
names. Yeah, when she was like, Gen Z and hip hop and like all the things. And I just like think about all of the conversations that are happening with a bunch of white folk in a room. I was like, what's the hip hop and the Gen Z of it all? And like the fact that you were able to be there and steer the conversation and say, yes, this is how it is, also shows how important it is to have diversity in these boardrooms, on these ownership boards, all of those things. So talk to us a little bit about how your vision for Atlanta Dream and how you're getting there and how we can help. Like, we are a part of your village now.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. Speaking of village, I had dinner last night with a group of people that have homes here in Martha's Vineyard, and this place is lit. By the way, I tweeted out Martha's Vineyard changed my life, because the concept of wealthy, you usually see it a certain way. It's what attracted me to Atlanta. But when you come here, it's like you see a lot of Black families that are excelling, you see community. So speaking of that community, that's kind of what I always lean on, the community I grew up in. So I grew up in the church, as you guys saw, and so every Sunday was stressful for me, and y'all know why now, because I was trying to get to the game, and I wanted my hair to look different. There was a lot of things, but it showed me what building a community looks like. It showed me how do you include everyone and that has the same like-minded mission. And so in these boardrooms, it's easy because we all want the Atlanta Dream to be one of the premier teams in the WNBA. How we do business is top level. So we all have the same mindset that we want. And so when I'm there, I'm thinking, all right, what would our culture, attract to? Because Atlanta is one of these cities where it's a different type of city there. Black excellence is the norm. It's like, duh, like you go meet the CEO and I'm shaking hands and she looked like me. And I'm like, let's go. So how do we, as the Atlanta Dream, a women's sports franchise, how do we lean into that? So that, to your point, I'm like, we just need to be Atlanta. Sometimes it's keeping it simple. It sounds basic, but it's like, how can we be the most Atlanta? Because if we make ourselves, the Atlanta Dream, the most Atlanta team in the city, whether it's football, basketball, then I feel like our city's gonna like us because everybody likes themselves. You know what I mean? You gonna like somebody representing you. And so just the artists we bring in, the fan base that we appeal to, the music that we play in the arena, it's very ATL. And then ATL shows up. I remember being a player for the Atlanta Dream. So I played for the Atlanta Dream in 2019, and we would run out, and it would be ghost town. And it's tough. As an athlete, you saw the games where I played in college. It's sold out. Even at Minnesota Lynx.
What the coach was saying, the UConn coach was like, it's crazy for her to go from UConn, sold out crowds, everything you need, all the resources, to then going to a professional league where you had nothing.
That part. And so that was my real reality. I mean, at UConn, we have private flights now with the WNBA, but not when I was playing. But at UConn, we flew private to every game. We had the best of the best facilities. We had sold out crowds. And so as an athlete, that's what you dream of. You think about when you're practicing at home and you're like, the crowd goes wild. You hear it all the time when people are doing that. That wasn't my reality for the Atlanta Dream. And so for me, it's like, you want players to feel their best self. You want them to feel like ballers. You want them to feel like professional athletes. And so that's kind of was the whole thought process for me. It's like, we're not doing that here. Even me going to the Atlanta Dream, other players was like, girl, you tripping. Why would you leave Minnesota? Y'all just won 2 championships in 3 years. What you doing? But for me, it was like, I can't even explain it. Y'all, I'm glad that the interviews show it because there was reporters that would literally ask me, why are you here? And I would just be like, hey, it's a leap of faith, man. It's like, I know it. There's no logical reason for me to have chosen to go to Atlanta. But always, like you said, there was something already being written before I even came there. And I didn't even know it at that time. But Atlanta was where I needed to be.
And that, I just wanted to say, and that just goes, yes, let's clap it up. I was just going to say that also just goes to show that you had a vision. You didn't just leave, you had a vision. And that's why sometimes you can't tell your vision to everybody because everybody's not going to understand it. But you stayed steadfast in your vision, and your vision has opened the door for this opportunity that you have here today. So I just wanted to compliment you on that.
Listen, anything you got to say to me, I'm listening, what'd you say? I'm in.
Exactly. No, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, Monique, because I think that beyond being obviously an amazing businesswoman, you've also been very vocal. Obviously, you're vocal about your faith, but how are you able to balance that too with the business side of things, but also showing up as your authentic self? You said that's the reason why you feel like you've been so successful, but do you feel like in this world of social media where everyone can nitpick things and they're looking at you and your family, whatever it is, how are you able to balance those two things? Who you are authentically and then running this amazing company?
One is not allowing the opinions of others drive, who I am and, make me get lost in that. My husband has this quote where he says, if you do things for the cheers of the crowd, you'll fall by the criticism of the crowd. And what that means is that
did you hear that hush in the crowd? They were like, that is a quote. Wait, say it again.
So if you do things for the cheers of the crowd, you're going to fall by the criticism of the crowd. And so basically, I don't care like what people say because it doesn't matter. Like even the people and the chatter on social media, like nobody's gonna come up to you, Renee, and be like, Renee, I don't like your shoes today. Renee, I don't like your glasses. Like nobody's gonna do that in real life, but they'll do it on social media.
Their phone and like the computer.
Yeah. So you just have to like know and realize that a lot of the things that people tend to criticize and say is just a very small group of people that talk really, really loud and that are insecure and that's projecting their insecurities onto you. So when you like break down the reason why people tend to like criticize you or judge you, like you tend to like be like, I don't really care, right?
Do you even read the comments? Do either one of you read the comments and all of that?
I'm on Twitter every day. So I like, to your point, athletes, we call it like thick skin, but I've been scrutinized since I was 12 years old. Like y'all saw on the film, like since I was 10, people would literally look at me and be like, yeah, you're not gonna make it. You too short.
Too small.
You too small. Like and I'm like, you don't even know if I'm gonna grow yet. Like I'm still 10. Like, can I hit a growth spurt? I didn't hit a growth spurt, but so they might have known something I didn't know, but since I was 10, there's been people that have literally at every aspect of my life just been like, you not it. And I think that's kind of why my sisters are like big sisters through and through. And y'all don't even know the half, but it's like they are fighting like at all times to make sure that my headspace was good. Like they would make sure that like, if they heard somebody say something negative, they would make sure to come to tell me like, I'm gonna put it nicely, like forget them. You know what I mean? Like they would be that group all the time that would be like, we're not even worried about what the papers say. Because in West Virginia, it wasn't Twitter or social media. It was our actual newspapers that was saying some wild stuff about us. And I would be like, how are they gonna say something crazy? We just won the game. Right. But that was just our normal lifestyle in West Virginia, different times. And so at a young age, I had to just start getting exactly what she was talking about, that F it. Like, it's like, I don't care. I'm gonna do what I think is best. I'm gonna do me, and let's see what happens. And my Diddy would always say, like, the way to prove somebody wrong is just
be successful.
Just be successful.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not going to happen. Like, it takes time to get there. Like, I haven't always been this way. Like, there was a moment in my career where I did get affected by like what people would say, but I also realized that the more people talked about me, the more I kept growing, right? The more God kept blessing me in front of their faces. So
thank you
haters.
Gotta
not in front of their faces. I love that.
They always, you gotta
you
have
ain't popping unless you got haters.
It comes with the territory, and you have to know that like, if, like you say, you're not doing something right if people are not criticizing you, right? And you have to have a good support system. You got to have like praying partners around you. You got to have people that's going to continue to speak life in you, because really the outside world and the people that are making these comments, like they really don't matter. Like you're probably never even going to meet them a day in your life, right? And if you do meet them, guess what they're going to do? They're going to say, "Can I take a selfie? Can I take a selfie with you?" They're really fans. So, you just got to...
He a fan.
They not like us? Okay, last question, because they're like, you got to wrap it up, even though I could like literally talk to you guys forever. Legacy. We have to talk about legacy. I think, and I pose this to everyone out in the audience as well, I don't think we talk about legacy enough. You talk about legacy with stars and celebrities and that sort of thing, but we all have our own personal legacies. I know running my mouth and my fingers and talking about diversity and inclusion in my industry, in the beauty industry, will be my legacy, right? What do you guys want your legacies to be? I mean, this is a moment in your legacy, obviously, this film, and you being a part of such an amazing project, but tell me in like 30 seconds or less what your legacy you want to leave, at least today.
Ooh, 30 seconds or less. Okay, so that's a tough one. So my legacy, I feel it's truly about impact, like I said earlier. And my legacy is that I want to create more Monique and Melvin Rodriguez's in our community. That's how we're going to continue to get ahead. We are already 400 years behind as a Black community, but the only way to get ahead is to stick together, to collaborate, to have these partnerships, to change the narrative, to be what we want the next generation to see, so we can create this community of Black wealth and continue on this Black excellence. And it shouldn't be just Black excellence, it should just be excellence. And that's what I want to set.
Word up. Thank you. That's so good. And
excellent.
Renee?
Okay. For me, I think it's just changing perspectives. I think that even my whole life, it was first changing the perspective of how people saw me from a small athlete. They kept on telling me I wouldn't go pro. But then also, when I went to the business side, a lot of people didn't think that an athlete, this is a backside, I know I only got 30 seconds, but a lot of athletes in the past, when they would be done playing, they would go and try to get a job and people would tell them they have no previous prior work experience, that they have no ability to cross over into the business space. I know people that were struggling to get a job and they are the most disciplined athletes that's played at the highest level, and you can't get a job because people didn't see athletes as business people. They saw us as entertainment to that point, but not moguls. We see the moguls now because we see the athletes, that what they're doing with their money, but I think just changing the perspectives of people. I mean, being a black woman from West Virginia hopefully changed a lot of people's perspective in West Virginia about black people. I hope. I don't know. I can't call it. But I hope that just the idea, I always say moments equal momentum, because sometimes we feel so small as like one person in the world. It's like, oh, what can I really do? And I think that we have to change that mindset. I feel like there's a lot of power up here with us three. 10 years ago, I don't know if we would have thought that. 20 years ago, I don't know if we would have thought that. So somebody, if you're sitting here, you have to understand how powerful you are. You have to change your own perspective then sometimes, because we're our worst critic. When you look at a photo, if we took a selfie, the first thing you're going to do is going to zoom in. You're going to look at yourself. You're going to be like, oh, gosh, I need to get this done. Why is my smile like that? We're going to just tear ourselves down. Yeah. I hope that I leave like a whole perspective on changing your mind, changing other people's mind, but you're powerful in your own right. So that's just how I feel.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. Please join me in thanking Monique Rodriguez and Renee Montgomery.
Bam.